So the bottom line here is that AI search isn't replacing traditional search, at least not yet. But trust and usage are increasing rapidly, especially among younger demographics. All in all, what it says is that it can no longer be ignored.
Hi, I'm Rory Holland, CEO of Customer, and you're listening to Mighty Finsights. Today, we've got a special episode prepared with specialists from the customer team. We'll be talking about how the online visibility landscape has evolved and what that means for financial brands trying to reach their audiences. The team has been working incredibly hard over the past few years to understand how AI is changing online visibility and how companies and marketers should take advantage of those changes. In short, you're going to learn why SEO isn't dead. It's now part of a bigger, more dynamic ecosystem. What your company can do to leverage the opportunity, and how Customer is helping clients solve for visibility in the age of artificial intelligence. Join me for a special roundtable with my colleagues, Jack Macy, Brendan Bresnahan, and Romina Gomez. Let's dive in. Hey, Jack, I'd like to start with you. Let's do a quick round of intros. Passing the baton to you.
Great. Excited to talk about this today. My name is Jack Macy. I'm the founder, COO at Customer. I oversee operations here and provide the team and clients with strategic direction, strategic thinking. I work mostly with clients on marketing strategy and brand positioning, but primarily really making sure our great collection of specialists, are supported in the way they need to be.
Awesome. Brendan.
Yeah, hey everyone. My name is Brendan Bresnan. I'm Customer's Director of Content. I am Customer's content strategy lead here, and I'm focused on helping clients build authority and visibility across different digital channels. And I would say I specialize in long form content strategy and website copy. That's my particular focus at Customer.
Thanks, Brendan. Romina.
Hi, everyone. My name is Romina Gomez. I'm the Discovery Optimization Manager. I specialize in discovering optimization strategy and execution lead. And also I specialize in technical optimization, not only me, also with the help of the development and UX team.
Awesome. Great to have you guys. All right, let's get started. So I have the privilege of talking to lots of leaders of financial brands and fintech brands, and we've all kind of experienced the change in consumer behavior over time as AI has now been integrated into search. And so it's not just about ranking on Google anymore. And I know the Customer and you guys have been developing new strategic solutions to address these changes. But before we dive into all the details, Brendan, I'd love to ask you, let's talk a little bit about what's changed.
Yeah, absolutely. So for as long as Romina and I have been working in digital marketing, this probably doesn't apply to you and Jack, Rory, but for as long as we've been working in marketing, to search and to find information has been a very linear process. It's been go to your search engine of choice. In most cases, for most people, it's Google. Type in what it is that you're looking for, run a search, get results, manually go through those results. Hopefully you find something that satisfies your question. And if not, then you rinse and repeat, right? So essentially it's been 20 to 25 years of that linear process. Now, what we see today in 2026 is that with the rise of Gen AI tools like ChatGPT, I believe ChatGPT was released publicly in November of 2022, that the way people search and find information is changing. And that is really important when it comes to the digital marketing space and the work that we do for our brands. So it's not to say that traditional search or Google search is going away. In fact, just one number to look at is that every day Google still processes anywhere between 8.5 billion and 9 billion searches. They still have 90% of the search market share. So they are the player in the space. But the data shows us, and we'll get into this a little bit later, is that preferences are changing and more and more people are using Gen AI tools or traditional tools that have some type of Gen AI functionality to search for information and find brands. So this essentially boils down to the fact that today, compared to 3 years ago and some change, we're working in a more fragmented search ecosystem, and we need to make sure that we are building new strategies and applying those strategies to every channel that exists to make sure that we're maximizing visibility for our clients.
So what you're saying is AI isn't replacing traditional search, but more channels are coming into play and being added to the equation as far as strategies go. Is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Jack, tell us a little bit about this phenomenon and what first got your attention and the strategic shifts that you thought we needed to make.
Yeah, playing a little bit on what Brennan said, probably 2023 was really when we started to see the clearest signs that first came through our reporting that we do for our clients, where we would see increased referral traffic from Gen AI platforms, for example, or decrease in organic traffic from search, kind of trickling in at the beginning at that point. But really, it was also, not until 2025 where we really saw a significant shift. And this was also compounded by us personally at Customer. We started to hear anecdotal evidence from the people we were speaking with about partnerships, about working with us, that they were finding Customer through Gen AI. And that was a little bit of a exciting, eye-opening experience for us as well. But really, the biggest signal was when Google themselves made AI overviews standard on search results. And so once that happened, the same day, I think our team, looked at each other and immediately knew this was going to have a dramatic impact. And I think that was kind of the slow burn. And during that time, we were already doing research, having conversations about how do we adapt and adjust to make sure that we're doing the marketing work that needs to be done to improve that visibility, to make sure our clients feel supported, and with all this new technology emerging, and how consumers of all different types are using it. And I think the things we found were that SEO wasn't dying. It wasn't going away. The fundamentals were still critical. But the visibility landscape was evolving for sure. Where your brand was seen and found was changing, and how people wanted to receive those answers was changing as well. And so people are starting to develop preferences for the channels they use to find information, to ask questions, to dig deeper. And for financial brands, that's a big opportunity, I think. And so that leads us to kind of where we landed in late 2025 with the introduction of what we call discovery optimization.
So what is discovery optimization, Jack?
Yeah.
And how did we arrive at that framework?
Exactly. So it really is a reflection of what we saw happening in the marketplace. People were talking about SEO, and then they weren't talking about SEO. They were talking about people finding things and information through AEO, GEO. There was no name for it. There was all these generative AI. There was just a soup of phrases and names and information going around that made it very unclear what direction we should go in and what people should be paying attention to. And so we are introducing the concept of discovery optimization. This happened in 2025, which is our strategic approach to helping brands get found across the places where their audiences are looking, not just Google and classic search, but Google's AI-assisted search, their overview AI platforms, voice search, social, and other places that will likely evolve and emerge that are being assisted and driven by AI. But really, discovery optimization, think of it as an umbrella that encompasses different ways to increase your visibility. So the three core strategies there that we think about are SEO is still under that umbrella, AEO, and GEO. And we capture that along with other elements in this umbrella we call discovery optimization, which is exactly that. We are working to optimize how brands, how ideas, how information gets discovered through higher visibility through a variety of platforms. And I think the key insights here is that you can't ignore any of these channels if you want to maximize discoverability. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in how the fundamentals of good SEO are still fueling much of what we do, but the medium in which people find that information is changing dramatically.
Yeah, and Brendan, for listeners who may not know the terms that Jack mentioned, there's a number of acronyms flying around out there these days, and I'm often asked questions about what they mean and how to leverage them. Can you break down SEO, AEO, and GEO?
Yeah, absolutely. Getting into the acronym soup. So SEO is search engine optimization. It's been the backbone of online visibility for the last 2 decades plus. It's a very important foundational pillar for any digital marketing strategy, broken down into on-page SEO, off-page SEO, and technical SEO. Answer engine optimization, or AEO, is essentially making sure that we are optimizing content so that it appears in AI overviews in search, mainly Google search. But what we're trying to do is say, okay, when Google is serving up an overview to a user's query, a user's question, and it is providing a citation to publicly available information, we want to make sure that the content that we're producing on our website is being cited in that overview. And then finally, Generative Engine Optimization, or GEO. This essentially is as a channel and a strategy to making sure that when a user is working in their Gen AI chatbot of choice, so let's say ChatGPT or Gemini, and they either receive a citation to publicly available information or ask for a citation, as that's big in terms of how users are working with these tools now, is, hey, I have a question for you, but in your answer, I want you to give me a publicly available citation to where you found that information. We want to make sure that our clients are appearing in those citations within the chatbot, within the Gen AI tool. Now, that might sound slightly overwhelming, the number of acronyms, the number of different tools and strategies and channels that we're working with. But the good news here is that the same foundational principles that drive results for SEO are the same ones that apply to GEO and AEO. So when it comes to content, from the perspective of driving search visibility through content, quality content with a clear structure that signals authority, that's what drives success when it comes to organic search. And that is what drives success with respect to AEO and GEO. This is what Romina and I have seen in the data when we've performed discovery optimization audits for our clients. But it's also something that a very important stakeholder in the digital marketing and search space has commented on. Danny Sullivan, who was the former search liaison for Google, big name in the digital marketing world. He was the founder of Search Engine Land until very recently, the search liaison at Google. I believe he left that position in August of 2025. But he said, good SEO is good GEO. That's one of his more recent quotes. And that same principle applies to AEO as well. So essentially, if you're delivering value-driven content, authoritative content, a content that actually helps the user, you're going to find success both in search and also in AEO and GEO.
Romina, I'd like to go to you. You're working on the front lines of all this. Can you talk a bit about what discovery optimization looks like from your perspective, and why does cross-channel visibility matter so much for financial brands in particular?
Yeah, so Jack and Brendan already were mentioning other channels, right, to consider when we work on optimizations. And so if we need to define what cross-channel visibility is, it's about spreading across the spectrum of channels that users and AI reference. So we know these different channels, right? We know the search engines, Google search, the chatbots, and voice assistants, YouTube, that is also a very important and big search engine. We have forums, like since I think it was last year or the year before, Google started to show more answers from Reddit in the SERPs, and also, as always, social media. So when we say cross-channel visibility, I think it sounds a little bit digital marketing 101. We have always been discussing that a brand needs to cover this cross-channel visibility. But in this case, we need to remember that AI is not only going to reference what we do on a website, but also what we do on these channels. For example, if we have a great YouTube video, we get a chance of being cited on that type of content as well. And going back to this idea of digital marketing 101, of course, having a consistent message is key on all of these channels, not only for AI, but for the users, because we cannot say that a user got to a website alone by typing words. They may have seen other content prior to it. So we need to show the users and AI that we are the same on all of the platforms. Maybe we are sharing different content and different formats, but the message should be the same. And of course, that is relevant for financial brands because we need trust and they need trust to be their main priority, their first priority. You are not going to open a bank account on a bank you've never seen that you don't trust. So covering all of these channels, visibility is relevant for users to know this brand, to trust this brand. So we need to establish authority and credibility in every channel to ensure Gen AI is going to pick the brand that we are working with. So we discuss it with our clients, of course, and we tell them that they need to own their channels. If they have a blog section on a website, it cannot be abandoned. It cannot have 2 blog posts. The same with YouTube. You cannot have videos that are from 2022. We are in 2026. So that needs to be, you need to own your channel. Of course, you need to have press citations and industry publications that mention your brand. And I was thinking about this, and it's like, you hire a contractor and you're going to ask people around you if they know it. You're not going to have someone build your house and you don't know how they work. So it's the same with a website. You need to get other brands to trust you, to show trust for AI and users to trust you. Of course, everything that is related to social media and community forums. Social media is not only Instagram. Sometimes clients are not aligned to getting these channels, but we believe that social media can be useful for AI citations and also for users to discover the brand. And last but not least, this variety of channels can help a brand if they see volatility in other channels. For example, we know there is volatility around organic search. So getting other channels that will help you get awareness and citations and traffic is also relevant.
Yeah, thanks, Romina. Brendan, I want to shift gears just a little bit and talk about some of the data behind this evolution that's happening with AI search. Can you talk about some of the stats that we're seeing on this shift and what's happening?
Yeah, absolutely. The data is very interesting because what I'm going to talk about here is data from 2024 and 2025. But again, I think we all remember what it was like when ChatGPT became publicly available. There's this brand new tool. It's futuristic. We're not quite sure how to use it. It's okay. Let me play around with it and have a conversation. A lot of news articles about how kids in high school and college were using ChatGPT to help them with their essays or their finals. There wasn't a lot of people that were using it to find information in lieu of using a search engine like Google. It was just, okay, we're playing around with this. Maybe it can help me be more efficient in responding to an email, or, it can help me write a blog post, but I'm not using it to search for information. That changed probably, I'd say 18 months after it was released. You can see in the data that it started being the use case for, I'm using this Gen AI tool to find information rather than using Google search. We started to see the data shift. So 2024 showed us that Google search grew a little over 21% year over year, while chatbot traffic grew almost 81%. So a massive difference there in terms of growth for Google search compared to chatbot traffic. Now, the important thing to note is at the time, total chatbot traffic in 2024 was only a little less than 3% of total search traffic, right? So very, very minuscule compared to traditional search traffic, but the point is the data shows that it was growing. Fast forward to 2025, as of August, now there's still data that's going to be coming in over this next quarter. So it'll be interesting to see what the final data for 2025 is. But as of August 2025, we saw that gap narrow. So the gap I'm talking about is that ChatGPT owning 3% of search traffic or search market share, that narrowed to roughly for every 5 Google users, every 5 users using Google search engine to find information, there's now 5 Google users for every AI search user. In addition to that, the chatbot and Gen AI search is now 8% of the combined search market share. So long story short, it's growing significantly. Now, I think more interesting than the fact that it's starting to eat into Google's market share is the fact that when we look at user adoption statistics, we see that there's an increasing percentage of the population that now trust in these tools. So again, when the tools first came out, a lot of people weren't sure where the information was coming from. Sometimes it was inaccurate, weren't quite sure that they could trust what their Gen AI tool of choice, the responses that they're getting from them. But the most recent data shows that almost 80% of Americans now trust AI, especially from the search perspective. 77% trust AI chatbots for information. And then if we break it out into demographic specific information, we see that Gen Z adoption is particularly high, right? So roughly when it comes to these trust factors, 30% of Gen Z use AI chatbots for search. This is way higher than any other demographic group. And 76% of Gen Z and younger millennials trust AI answers more than they trust answers from traditional search. And I think for me, that is the one statistic that stands out most. So the bottom line here is that AI search isn't replacing traditional search, at least not yet. But trust and usage are increasing rapidly, especially among younger demographics. All in all, what it says is that it can no longer be ignored.
Yeah, thanks, Brendan. Romina, we've talked about new acronyms like GEO and AEO, but what about YM, YL, and EEAT? And can you describe these concepts and why they matter for financial brands?
Yeah, sure. I like the acronyms are part of digital marketing and SEO. So we have a YMYL that stands for your money or your life. Pretty intense acronym. So this means all of the topics that can directly impact people's financial stability or personal well-being. So under this umbrella, we can also consider not only financial brands, but everything related to health and also legal advice. And the other one is EEAT, that stands for experience, expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. It used to be one E in the past, only experience, authority, and trustworthiness. And I think that's interesting to mention because I think the second E was added in 2022, and it relates with everything we have been discussing around the forums and social media and how experience is also relevant to get citations or to be relevant nowadays in everything that users search, right? Reddit got a lot of recognition because users are providing what experience they had with a service or a product. So all of these EAT needs to be shown. Every brand needs to show these attributes, or they may get overlooked by AI platforms, as they already did in Google search, where they didn't accomplish to show all of these items. Fortunately, we see that financial services topics see AI overviews appear less frequently than other YMYL industries. For example, only about 42% of financial related keywords trigger AI overviews, compared to nearly 78% in legal topics. So I think this is relevant in the sense that we still have time, brands still have time to build their authority. We see authority being relevant and important still, and I think that shows why we have less keywords trigger but this type of topics. So I think the key takeaway on these specifics is that we not only need to show that we are experts on a topic, but also we need to build authority in that space, right? We need to be consistently recognized, cited, and trusted across channels. And I think this is, the main thing to get from this.
I'd like to talk about some of the actions that financial and fintech brands can take to take advantage of this evolution, and really just kind of setting up a conversation here around how our listeners can know if their current approach to visibility is actually working, and two, what kind of mindset shifts would you guys recommend for them to take advantage?
Yeah, I can respond to that. I think I have a few thoughts on that. One is, if your organization's only focused on conventional SEO and really is weighting their data and analytics on website traffic, you're likely missing a part of the picture. And that really depends on even the quality of your SEO efforts. If they're low, you're probably missing a tremendous amount. And I think the biggest mental shift for the clients we work with and everybody in general is to stop thinking about this as SEO versus AEO and start thinking about it as total brand visibility across all the possible channels where your brand can get discovered. And I think, again, like we've talked about, Brendan talked about, Romina talked about, is that you can't take shortcuts to this. The fundamentals matter more than ever. And you need to be aware of tools and platforms out there or partners that promise these shortcuts to getting into Gen AI, annotations and results and your information being used in these places. The fundamentals still work. You need unique, clear, valuable, and thoughtful content that demonstrates real expertise. And that's hard to develop a shortcut to that. AI generated content can be used, but it should be used with a lot of discretion. And there are multiple sources that have noted in these organizations that the human element, the human impact is still highly valued above AI generated content when it's seen as part of the content you're developing. So if you try to game the system and rely on weak content, or you're trying to produce volumes of content versus quality content, you're likely to struggle more across all these channels, not just Google and their AI overviews, but in Gen AI, in chatbots, in other tools we see out there.
It's good to know that humans are still valued in the process, Jack. That's probably for another episode. But yeah. Coming back to what you just said, Jack, Brendan, I want to ask you a question. If you were to pull out your magic ball, rub on it, and look into the future a couple of years, where do you see online visibility evolving?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a couple thoughts here. So the first one is that I think the fragmentation that we're seeing of this digital ecosystem is just going to continue. So we're going to see more channels, more ways to discover information. Things are changing almost by the day in terms of new tools that are available or how people are using Gen AI. So I think that's going to continue. I think that AI platforms, as we see these user trust data continue to show that more and more users are placing trust in Gen AI as opposed to the search results in Google, for example. I think AI platforms are going to get way more selective about what they cite. And that means for us as marketers, authority and trust signals are going to matter even more than they do right now. And they matter a lot right now. I think that blog content in particular is going to remain a strategic growth engine. So obviously, it's It's a very important pillar to driving organic search visibility, but I think it's also going to drive AEO and GEO visibility as well. And I think finally that YouTube is going to become even more critical as a mechanism for digital discovery. All we need to do is look at the market share for the top 10 domains for AI overview citations. Google accounts for 8% of impressions for those top 10 domains and 12% of mentions across those domains. So just one platform accounts for a massive amount of market share with respect to AI overviews. And those
from my conversations with business leaders, a lot of them are feeling anxious or concerned about their brand visibility and staying competitive by what's happening. And what are a few practical things people could do today to increase their discoverability? Jack?
Yeah, I mean, it comes back to this. We're sounding like a broken record, but I think it's really important. Stick to the fundamentals. Create great content. And great content for people, not machines. So what do people find valuable? What answers their questions? What do they reference over and over again because of that quality? For people, not machines. And then if it's genuinely helpful and it demonstrates expertise, it will perform across channels. People want valuable content. And so continuing to focus on being helpful and inserting your expertise in as a position for how you can be helpful is critical.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for my part, I would say that brands need to really double down on being an authority in their space. So it's not enough to just have content or a digital footprint that's accurate, right? You can rank effectively by having accurate content, but if you really want to drive discoverability across the different Gen AI infused channels, you need to be an authority, right? You need to be consistently recognized in your space, the go-to resource for whatever it is that whatever subject matter you're working in. You need to be cited and trusted across all of the channels that Romina and I have mentioned today. For me, that's a big one moving into 2026.
Yes, for me, I think that we need to think about brand visibility in a holistic way. So I encourage everyone to ask yourself when you're working with a brand, even the client itself, if someone is searching for a topic that you should own, right? A keyword that you feel that it's your own, where do you show up? Are you ranking only on Google? Do you have presence in AI responses on YouTube? Are some industry publications mentioning your brand? Is people already discussing your brand? So that is something you need to have in mind. And based on that, map where your audience is actually looking for you or for brands that are similar to yours. And make sure that the brand is present consistently across all the channels.
Yeah, you guys have shared some really great insights and some initial action items some financial brands can take. I wanted to ask you guys, if people want to learn more about discovery optimization, how can they do that?
Yeah, I can offer a couple things. One is we have a really nice comprehensive article on what we've been talking about here today on our Finsights blog on our website at customer.com, entitled Discovery Optimization and the Shifting Landscape of Search. I encourage everybody to go read that. It gives you a more in-depth, long-form kind of take and insights into this realm. Definitely do that. And then for those who want to evaluate their current visibility strategy, financial organizations, schedule a call with customer and to talk about what your needs are, and even request a discovery optimization audit. We'd be happy to do that and help you see where you're at and what the opportunities are for you moving forward.
Yeah, I'll attest to the article. I've heard a lot of great feedback from leaders of companies to financial marketers and everything in between. So there's a lot of good information in there, and we'll be sure and put that link in the show notes so that the listeners can go find it. I want to thank you guys, Romina, Brendan, Jack, for coming on the show. It's been awesome. You guys have unpacked some really interesting things, lots of great insights, some good action items. I encourage everybody to go take a look at that article. Really, really helpful. And I think this discussion is going to help lots of financial brands and leaders and financial marketers make decisions about how to stay competitive in this space. And I want to thank the listeners too. If you've enjoyed this discussion, you can listen to all of our past episodes on our website, CSTMR.com, or wherever you find your favorite podcast. This show is produced and distributed by Customer, a digital fintech marketing agency, all rights reserved. Our production team includes Zach Garver, Becky Dombrowski, Brad Jerger, Romina Gomez, and Bailin and Curio.